In this video, I'm going to be demonstrating how to implement pagination with jQuery. So you can see right now we're displaying 4 on the page, and you can navigate to another page, and you can also use the arrows to navigate back and forth, and it doesn't reload the page. So just a easy way to implement that using jQuery. A few prerequisites: you'll need Bootstrap if you want to follow along exactly like in the tutorial. You can head over to getbootstrap.com, hit getting started, and then basic template or examples. And then here in the examples, the one I'm using is this first one here, the starter template. And then you're also going to need jQuery, obviously. If you search jQuery CDN, you can get mapped up really quick. You can just click the first one here and then hit uncompressed, and then copy that script and place it in your HTML. So I'll just show you really quick what mine looks like. Really simple. I got the Bootstrap, and then here's the starter template, and then here is my jQuery script. So just a basic template. So what I usually always recommend when you want to test these files, you want to just insert a script to make sure that jQuery is mapped up. So I'll just say body, I'll say hide, right? And so if this is working, if jQuery is mapped up, then the entire body should be invisible, just like that. So if that doesn't work for you, you may need to search your HTML. Maybe it's not inserted correctly. You also want to enable your browser developer tools, and then go to the console. You may get an error message here if you're not properly mapped up. So I'll just go back and remove this, and then it should come back. So the first thing I want to do is add the stuff that I'm going to use the pagination for. So I'll just go ahead and hard code that into the HTML, and shouldn't take long. I'll show you what it looks like. So I'll just create a new div here at the bottom in the body, and we'll have class list group, and then pass in an anchor with, I'll just leave that like that for right now. And then class will be list group item active. And then inside there, pass in h4, class list group item heading. I'll say title 1. And then pass in a paragraph. Whoops. This will be list group item text. Then I'll just enter some text in here. Actually, let me put more than that. That should be good. All right, and then let me just see what that looks like. All right, so you should have that. Now, one thing I'm going to show you is if you click on it, it adds a little hash mark here, the little whatever you want to call that, to the URL. There's an easy way to get rid of this, and all you do is right here, instead of that, you can type in JavaScript void parentheses and then a 0. And so now you'll notice once you click it, nothing gets added to the URL. So I like to add that to all my links that point to nothing. So the next thing you want to do is copy that and paste it 10 more times. Okay, and then I'm just going to go through and number these each. So 11, 10. And then once you're done with that, you just want to double check that you have exactly 11 boxes. And then the next thing that I want to add is this little feature from Bootstrap. If you scroll down, click, let's see, pagination, you can grab this little sample they have here. So I'll just copy this, and I'm going to paste it at the top, just so it's easier to see. And then you should have this little box right here. Now you'll notice, as it is right now, whenever you click on a number, it becomes like the active. In other words, it's highlighted. So just kind of make note of that. And you also notice when you click on these, it also does the same thing as this. So again, this is optional, but I like to do it. Just add that to all the links so that you don't get that. And I'm going to erase these other ones for right now. We're not going to need them. Alright, so now it's time to go ahead and build on the jQuery. So first, we want to get how many items we have, right? Because we don't want to set it to 11, even though we know that's how many we have, but we want to make it dynamic because you won't always have the items hard-coded into the HTML like this. Maybe you're getting it from a database or something, or looping. So you don't want to have you want to have a dynamic value, not a static. So to do this, what we can do is say, I'll say alert. And to get the length, you just grab the item that you want to check for, right? So in this case, all of these group items here. Well, easy way to do is we can put all of these inside of a div. So let me just do that really quick. I'm gonna grab all the individual divs and put them in one parent div. And for that parent div, I'm going to add an ID that says, I'll just name it loop. And then I'll paste that in there. So then in jQuery, what you can do is type in that ID, which was loop, followed by the class, right? So the subclass or the child class beneath that you want to check. So I'll show you what I mean. So right here, the parent ID the ID of the parent div is loop. The child of that is list group. Okay, so we want to specifically check for all list groups inside of loop. And we do that by first specifying the ID and then the class, which is list group. And then we just add length to that. So what I'll do is I'll save this as a variable. I'll name it number of items. And then in this alert here, I will paste that. So I'll say number of items. And let's see what we get. So you see there, we're getting 11. Next, we want to set our limit. And again, you can do this dynamically. You can let the user specify whatever you want to do, but I'm just going to set a limit. I'll say limit per page, and I'll set it to 4. And so I want to show you a selector in jQuery, and what it's called is GT. And so the way it works is let's say you have 4 items, right? And of course you always start off with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 0, 1, 2, 3 like in an array, right? So let's say I pass in let's say 2, right? So it's only going to get this 3, right? So basically it takes whatever index you're specifying and it grabs everything after that index, right? So let's say I said 1, then it would grab 2 and 3. And so we're going to specify up to the limit and then hide everything else, right? So only show 4 and then hide everything else, okay? But remember, like I was saying, it doesn't start off at 1. It starts off at 0, 1, 2, 3, right? So because you have that difference, right, you want to subtract 1, since this is 4 items, but it ends at 3, and this one is actually 4. So whenever you're setting it, you want to subtract by 1, okay? And I'll explain that all in a second here again. So I'll say loop, and then list group, :GT, and then pass in parentheses. And actually, let me set all these to double quotations. You don't have to do that, but I like to do that with jQuery because you run into some issues in certain cases. So then inside of here, I'm going to go ahead and pass in. So normally you can just hard code something in here. Like say I did that, right? That'd be fine. But if you want to pass in a variable like this one, what you'll have to do is pass in the quotations like that and then concatenate the variable in, right? So in between there. So we'll say, and then you have to also put in parentheses. So I'll say limit per page -1, okay? And just really quick for context, I'll just show you what happens if I don't put that 1 in there. You'll see kind of how it doesn't work. So then I'll just say hide. And so you see now it's displaying 5, right? And so the reason for that is because it's starting at the 4th. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So everything after that is what's being hidden. So then if I just pass in -1, then you'll see that actually does limit it to the 4 that we need. Then we need to figure out how many pages are we going to need so that we can implement that number here. So the simplest way to do that is just with some simple math. So you take the total number of items, right? So total of items, and then you divide that by the limit that you have set, right? So let's say I have 20 total items, and I see how many times that can be divided by 4, which is the limit, right? And so that'll tell us that we're going to have 5 pages. So I'll just create a new variable for that and name it total pages. And then I'll set that to number of items divided by limit per page. Afterwards, I will go ahead and alert that and show you why this causes issues, right? So you see it's going to give you 2.75 if you used 11 like I did. So we don't want a decimal and a number like that. We want a whole number, right? So what we'll have to do is just round this up, which is really easy to do in JavaScript. You just add right here math.round and then add the closing parentheses, and then you'll see now it rounds to 3. So now what I'm going to do is going to go back to this HTML, and inside of the page number buttons, I'm going to get rid of number 1 altogether. So let me get rid of that. And I'm just going to paste it in here and then comment it out for right now. And so what I'll do is I'm going to actually insert that or append it here in the JavaScript, right here in the jQuery file. So what I'll need to do is use a unique ID or some type of class to do that. So we already have a class here to work with for the unordered list, which is Pagination. So we can use that. And I'll just say class pagination dot append, and then I'm going to append this in there. Like that. And so for the double quotations here, you'll need the single ones. And this is what I was saying before. You always want to use the double quotations in jQuery because you'll run into issues in certain cases. And along with the number here, you have to actually concatenate that. So you have to end quotations there, add the plus sign, same on the other end, and then open the quotations again. Then you would just want to save that and make sure it's getting appended. And then you'll see it right there. Now I'm running into an issue here where the next button or next page button is here. And the reason for that is because in the HTML, let's see, where is it? Okay, right here. Everything that gets appended in order after this. So it'll create a new one, say right here, after the next button. And you can change that in jQuery. There are a few ways to do it, but what I'm just going to do is just take it out altogether. And then I'll do the same thing. I'm going to append it, but I'll just append it after the other one. And I'm actually going to, well, here, let me create it really quick. And so I keep forgetting about these single quotes. All right. So it's going to be the pagination class dot append. And oops, let me put that in double quotations. And then same thing, changes to single. All right, and then I'm gonna, well, first I'm gonna check to make sure that worked. Okay, it did. But then I'm gonna comment it out for right now. And so we've already appended the first page, and then down here we have the next button, right? So in between that, we need to insert all the pages that we'll need according to the total pages, right? And so that'll just be a simple loop, right? And so the condition that we want to make sure, so first I'll create a variable, and the condition that we want is we want to make sure that variable is less than or equal to the total pages. And then we want to increment it by 1 each loop. Okay. So for every number of pages that we have, we need to insert a marker, right? A page number. And so we'll append it here, right? And so the way this is going to work, so we'll set this to a value, and it's going to loop. It's going to append the page number. So say it's going to insert page 2, right? And then we say insert. Then it's going to loop back, and it's going to check if it's reached the total pages yet. We know the total is 3, so at this point, if it's less than or equal to is the condition. So once it reaches 3, it's going to loop one more time. It's going to run that insert again, and then that's the max pages that we'll have, right? So let's draw this out to see what it looks like. So we want to start off with 2, and the reason that we want to start off with 2 is because we've already inserted page 1. Right, so we want to start off with 2 and go up to whatever max we need. So then what we'll do is, into the pagination, we'll append, and then we're going to append a new, this same thing up here. So I'll just copy this. And instead of having the number hard-coded like this, we'll change it to this variable, right? So as a recap, this is basically what we're doing. First, we insert the first item, the first page number. Then we keep looping through all of the items that we have until we reach the total, right? So on the first loop, this is set to 2, so then it's going to insert page number 2. Then it's going to loop again. And then its I is going to be 3 at this point. And then 3 is less than or equal to the total number of pages because there's 3 total pages. So it's going to do it one more time. It's going to insert that third page number. Then it's going to loop again, but this time I is 4 because we incremented it here. But 4 is going to exceed total pages, so it's greater than. So it's not going to loop anymore, right? So we only need to insert the number of pages. We only need to append by the number of pages that we have, right? That makes sense. And then afterwards, we go ahead and attach this next button at the very end. So hit save on that, and then you just want to make sure everything is good, and you'll see here the 3 page numbers. And I'll show you just really quick. You can actually, let's say, I'm going to add a few more of these, right? I just want to show you what happens. So now you'll see it automatically added the additional pages that I needed, right? So no matter what, it's dynamic, and no matter how many items you get, it's automatically going to increment this based on the limitation that you set. So now we need to give functionality to all the page numbers, right? So when users click here, right now it's not doing anything. So we just need to add some functionality to that. So what I'll do is, in here when I'm inserting these page numbers, I'll add an ID to it so that I can manipulate it. So I'll say ID, and I'll just name it current page. So now we can play with that. So what I'll do is I'll say pagination, and then list item, and then the new class I created, so dot current page. right? So we go into the main, the parent class, which is pagination, then to the list item that has the class of current page, which is going to be this one right here. Then I'll say I'll activate an event when users click on it. So I'll just say click, and then pass in comma, and then pass in a custom function. For right now, I'll pass an alert that says user clicked on page number. Oh, actually, I just realized this. I have this set to class here, but I added ID up here, so let me just make that class. So now you'll see when you click on each of these buttons, it'll tell you that you clicked on a page, right? And you'll notice if you click on the arrows, then that doesn't display anything. And so that's the reason why I attach a class to this list item. Because, for example, let's say I just did pagination in general, right? What happens is when you click it, yes, it'll bring that alert. But now if I click the arrows, it also brings the alert, because those are also list items in that unordered list. Okay, so you just want to make sure you specify that only this item right here. So we need a way to get which item users clicked on. So what we can do is get this current item, this current element, and get the index, right? So it's just index method. That's all it is, and it gives you whatever index that is in the element, right? So say, for example, I have 4 buttons, right? Well, it's actually going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, right? So if users click on that first one, then index is going to return 0 element. Second one, it's going to return 1 element, and so on. So all you need to do is just pass in this. Actually, it's not in quotations, just this, and then dot index, right? So it returns the index of this current list item. And then I'll save that to a variable, and I'll just say current page. And then for right now, I'm going to say user clicked on, and then I'll say current page, just because I want to make sure it works. So now let's say, for example, I click on a third page, you should get that third, second, and then first. Oh, actually, this the first one's not working because I forgot to add that class to it as well. So just up here, inside the list element, you want to do the same as down here. So I'll just copy it. And then just go back and make sure that works. And then one last thing, I also want to make 1 the default class, because that's obviously the first page that's going to be displayed. So after this current page here, I'll just add active. This is a bootstrap CSS class that's implemented. So you notice now by default it's highlighted blue to symbolize that it's the first, it's the current active page. So I also want to remove that class, right? So this highlighted blue whenever users go to another page. So what I can do is just remove that active class. So you don't want to do this because the class, the active class, is not going to necessarily be on the list element that was clicked on. So for example, if I click on number 3 and you say this, then it's going to try to see if active class is attached to this, to the third one. But it's not, it's attached to the first one. So you don't want to use this. You want to just specify any item in the pagination class, right? So you can say dot pagination, and then just list item. And then we can say dot remove class, and then pass in active. So whenever users click on a button, it's going to search all the list elements inside the pagination class and remove active from all of them, from any of them that have it, right? So I'll show you really quick how this works. So if I click on 3, you notice it removes it from the 1. And same thing, if I click on 2, it removes it from the 1. So then we need to re-add it to whatever the current one is that users clicked on. So for that, we can use this, and we need to. So we say this, add class, and then active. So let's see what that looks like. And you should get that effect. Now I want to show you something really quick. I'm going to go back and say user clicked on number. Okay. And so you'll notice now whenever you click on a page, it has that alert, right? Well, if you click on the same page, it still brings up the alert. So in other words, I show that to highlight that it's running this entire function every time you click on the page, even if you're clicking on the page that's already loaded. And we don't want that. We only want to execute the code if the users are trying to go to a different page. Otherwise, we don't need to do anything, right? It shouldn't do anything if you click on the exact same page. So we can run a check, right? We can say if if this has class of active, meaning it's a current active element, right? So for example, page 1 by default has this active, right? So if users click on a list element, it's going to check if the element that was clicked already has this class. So if you click on the first one, page 1, since it does have active as a class, it's going to return true as a condition. So what we can do is say return false, right, rather than return true. And so what that does is it doesn't execute the function, it just returns false. It does nothing. And then else, then we can plug in all the code into there. So just as a recap, what this is doing is you click on a button and then it checks that element. It checks to see if it has the active class. In other words, if it's the current page that's being displayed. If it is, it does nothing. If it isn't, then we're going to go ahead and proceed to the next page. And you just want to test that by clicking on another page. And then you want to click on the same page and make sure that nothing pops up. So you can go ahead and delete this alert window now. So what I want to do next is hide all of the elements, right? So I'll say loop. So loop, and then dot list group, and then I'll hide. Right, so that should look like this. When you click on another page, it hides all the items. And then what we're going to do is just redisplay the new items minus all the ones up to that page, right? So on this first page, I'm going to take these 4 elements and hide them, okay? So next we need to do some kind of weird math here. So this is what we have displayed on the first page, right? And then this is the second page. So what we need to do is grab these 4 right here and hide these 4 here. So first we got to get the total number of items. So what we need to do is get the total up to the page that the user is specifying, right? So let me kind of draw that out for you for a sec. So this is the first page. And then I'm just going to add a third one here. Okay, so if users click on this second page, then we need to basically identify that we have a total of 8 items and then subtract the first 4 from them. Okay, and then if users click on the third page, then we need to identify that there's 12 total numbers or items and that we need to subtract the first 8 of them. Okay. So first we can get the total. We'll name it grand total. And so that's going to be the limit we have set, which is these 4 here, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we set that up here, which is limit per page. So we can say limit per page. And then multiply that by the total, by the current page, right? So for example, if the users click on 2, then it's going to do 4 times 2, which is 8, which is the total number of items that we have. Or if users click on page 3, then it's 3 times 4, which is a total of 12 items, right? So in other words, you're multiplying the limit that you have set times the page number to get the total of items that we have. So then I'll do current page. And then we need to create a loop, and then what the loop is going to do is it's going to jump to whatever, in this case, right, we're trying to jump to page 2, right? We're going to jump to this 5th item here. And we're going to grab that one and the next 4 items, right? So right here, I'll create my variable, name it I. And so we don't want to exceed the total number of items, right? Obviously. So in other words, if we have 12 total items, then we don't need to loop more than 12 times because we don't have anything exceeding that. Now, in jQuery, there's another selector similar to GT, except this one grabs an exact one that you want it to, right? So you can tell it, hey, grab the 5th one, hey, grab the 6th one, 7th, 8th, and so forth. And that's exactly what we're going to do. And so what that looks like is, so we'll grab the loop and then the list group, pass in a colon, so very similar to what we did at the top here. But instead of GT, it's going to be EQ. All right. And then same thing, we want to concatenate the variable that we're looping, and then afterwards we're going to show. So we want to start this loop on this 5th element, right? We don't want to start it from 0, so we don't want to do this, because what's going to happen is it's going to start from the beginning, and then so it's going to start inserting all 4 of these items. So we want to skip to the 5th one, and so that's where we use this grand total here. So we can set I to equal grand total minus limit per page, right? So in this case, so remember, the grand total is based on whatever page number you click on, right? So if you click on page 2, then your grand total is going to be 8 items, right? And if you click on 3, 12, so forth, right? So we're taking 8 minus the limit, which is 4, and that's going to leave us with 4. And so remember that when you're dealing with these elements here, you also have 0. So technically this is 5. So what that's going to jump to is the 4 right here, right? So it's going to jump to the 4th index, but really the 5th item, okay? So in other words, it starts off at 0, so it goes here, then 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it arrives here. So it's going to grab that first item of the 2nd set, right? And it's going to insert it right here, or rather it's showing it's already inserted. Then it's going to loop again, and this is incremented by 1, so it's now 5. It's going to grab 5, show 5, keep looping, and then once it gets to 7, it's going to show that one and increment to 8. And then when it checks the condition here, that it's less than the grand total, it's going to return false, right? Because remember, the grand total is 8. So if you have 8, it's going to return false. It's no longer going to be looped, and then that's it. So hopefully that made sense. I tried to explain it in a way that was as least confusing as possible, but whoops, actually, let me not delete that part. So I'll just have that there. So then you just want to test this out, click on another page, and just make sure those numbers are good, right? Should have 1 to 4 on the first page, 5 to 8 on the second page, and then 9 to 11 on the last page. All right, sweet. So now we just have to give functionality to the back and front button, or the before, next, whatever you want to call it. So we'll just start off with next first. And so in order to manipulate the next button, I just need to add an ID to it. So go up here to where I have the next identified, and I'm going to add something to it. I'll just name it next page. Right, so now I can manipulate that down here. And I'll say on click first. I'm going to test it. Just always want to do that. Right. So similar to what I did above here where I got the index, I kind of want to do the same thing. And so what I'll do is I'll get the current page before users have. So when you click the button, it's going to tell you what page is currently the page that's on the screen, right? So to do that, you just use the Pagination class and then pass in the list item and then whichever one is the current active class attached to it. And then just grab the index to get whatever that element item is. So I'll save that into a variable. I'll name it current page. And for right now, I'll just display that here. So once you hit this next button, it should tell you which page you're on. Try clicking to the second page and doing the same thing, and you should get that too, right? So we need to know what page we're on before we do anything, right? Because if we're on the third page, we don't want to navigate away, right? So we have total pages defined up here, right? And it's outside the scope of the functions, right? So what that means is, let me copy this, right? Let's say I had a function up here. I don't know, just name it something. So with that, I wouldn't be able to access it in here because it's inside of this function scope. But once you remove it and put it on the outside here, or the global layer, I guess you could say, what happens is now you can access this within each function that's in the in the file. So since we identified that at the top, we can insert that here, right? So what we want is to stop this function once the users reach the max number of pages, right? So I'll say if current page is equal to the total pages, then return false, right? So in other words, what this is saying is, let's say I'm on page 3, the current page is 3. Well, if I click the next button, it shouldn't do anything because there's no more pages, so it's going to return false. Otherwise, if the current page is 2 and I click this, then we'll go ahead and execute the code, which the first thing we'll need to do is increment the page, right? So as users click on, say, page 1, then we'll increment by 1 and make it page 2, right? And that's what these little 2 plus signs are, it just increments by 1. The next thing we need to do is the same thing up here, so I'll just copy it, and that is to remove the current class from whatever list element has it. So I'll just test that really quick, and so when you hit that next, that should vanish. The next thing we need to do is the same thing up here, hide all of the items. So I'll just test that really quick, right? And then I'm basically going to do the exact same thing that I did up here. So I'll just paste that. And I'm basically reloading all of the items. Now I can't do the same thing that I did up here, where I added this, where I added active class to this, and because we're not working with the list item itself, we're working with the next page. So we just need to do it a little bit differently, and so all it'll look like is like this. We'll say .pagination list item with the current page class, and then we'll use the same method, eq, and then I'll add some concatenation and parentheses in the middle, and what I'll do is I'll say the current page. Now remember, this works in array elements, right? So, 0 index 1. So right now, if, say for example, the user clicks on, so if users click on, say, the first page, it's actually reading it as the second one, right? So what you want to do is just add -1, okay, and that'll fix that. Because remember, EQ grabs by array, or by index, and we don't want that. We want the actual page number, right? So we'll just subtract that by 1. And then finally, I'll just go ahead and test that and see what we have. And you just want to make sure that you get that 1 to 4, 5 to 8, 9 to 11, and that all the page numbers are the active class is jumping as you click through the pages. And then for the previous button, we basically do the exact same thing. But then we just need to change this, so I'll name it previous page. And I don't think I added that. It's actually in the index, I just remembered, in the HTML. So write, say ID, previous page, and then go back down here. And then if instead of checking if this equals the max, we just want to check if it equals 1. Because if the user is on page 1, then there's no sense in activating the function to go back. And then instead of going up by 1, we'll go down by 1. Okay, and then just give this a test and make sure. So I'll go all the way up and then all the way down. All right, and that's it for the tutorial. And this method is actually really awesome because you can basically implement it with any framework because it works with a DOM. And I know that there's a lot of frameworks out there that it's kind of difficult to implement this feature within that framework, or sometimes it's just way more trouble than it's worth. And it's really fast and easy to do with jQuery, and you don't need any plugins or any crazy code, and it's really easy to do. So I highly recommend this method.